Cary Grant quit Hollywood in 1966, when he was at the top of his fame, to become a dad. Instead of taking the money, he went to Beverly Hills and focused on raising his daughter Jennifer. It looked like a great story. Up until now, Jennifer Grant finally talks about how she grew up with one of Hollywood's biggest stars. What comes out is a troubling picture of a father's desperate attempt to make his kids' childhoods perfect because he never had one. In this real story, Cary Grant's obsession caused him to lose touch with his only daughter. On January 18th, Cary Grant was born as Archibald Alec Leach, 1904, in a small English house in Bristol. His family didn't have much money. Elias, his dad, worked as a clothes presser and made just enough to keep the family alive. Elsie, his mom, stayed at home but wanted to be a tailor. It was hard to live. They wore used clothes a lot and had to sell things to get food. Archie moved around a lot as a child because they didn't have enough money to stay put for long. Their most stable home was on Berkeley Road, and it was there that Archie discovered his love for performance. He started learning the piano when he was 4 years old and loved putting on little shows for his neighbors. He was good at something, so his mom saved all of her money to buy him tap shoes when he was 6. They were very important to Archie, and he would tap dance on the kitchen floor every night. Archie had some good times, even though his family was having a hard time. He thought back to having picnics in the woods during the summer and going to the Bristol Hippodrome to see live shows not very often. But when Archie was 9, everything changed. When he got home from school one day, his mom wasn't there. His dad told him she took a long vacation. It wasn't true. She was sent to a mental hospital because her health was so bad. For more than 20 years, Archie didn't know the truth. He was hurt. He started peeing the bed, had trouble in school, and started to stutter. He didn't give up, though. In its place, he worked backstage at the Hippodrome and dreamed of a better life. Things at school got worse for Archie when he was 14. He was kicked out because he was caught in the girls' toilet. He didn't give up. Instead, he went back to the Hippodrome and met Bob Pender, the head of a comedy troupe. Pender thought Archie had a lot of promise and hired him. After Archie joined the group, he trained for a long time, learning how to walk on stilts, do comedy, and do stage tricks. Archie wasn't giving up, even though it was hard. It didn't go well for his first show. He got so cold on stage that he had to be helped off, but he kept training. A lot of people knew him for doing dangerous things like juggling lights while walking on stilts. He even gave himself a funny stage name, Archie Leach, the rubber-legged wonder. In 1962, Archie was 16 years old, and the Pender troupe planned a trip to America. He went with them. His dream was to find big chances, so he set sail for New York City in 1920. His life changed after the trip. He put on a show with the band at the world's biggest theater, the New York Hippodrome, and the shows were a great hit. Archie chose to stay in America after the tour was over, though. He was set on making it even though he didn't have much money. He did odd things to make money, like walking on stilts at Coney Island and selling neckties. A few times, he even walked rich women to and from fancy parties. Archie watched how rich people dressed, talked, and behaved while he did these jobs. This is what he did himself, and over time it gave him the charm and style that would later make him famous. In 1927, Archie got his big break when he got a small part in a Broadway show. He worked hard and got more chances to work in theater. People began to notice him over time. Cary Grant left New York in 1931 to try his luck in Hollywood after years of having a hard time there. He only had his skills and drive when he got to Los Angeles. Paramount Pictures saw him right away. He made a deal with the studio for 5 years on December 7, 1931. This was the first step on his way to becoming a Hollywood star. Another big change happened in Grant's life around this time. He changed into Cary Grant from Archibald Leach. The people at Paramount didn't think his real name was very movie star-like. There was some talk, and in the end they picked Cary from his role as Cary Lockwood in the Broadway play Nicky. It was paired with the last name Grant, which was chosen from a list of possible names. In his early years in Hollywood, Grant had to learn and change. In the comedy This Is the Night, 1932, his first movie part was as an Olympic javelin thrower. It was a small part that was clear. He kept getting small roles in films like Blonde Venus with Marlene Dietrich that came out the same year. But his big break came in 1933 with the risky comedy She Done Him Wrong, which starred Mae West. The character Lady Lou, played by Mae West, became interested in Captain Cummings, played by Grant. The movie made over $2 million at the box office, which was a huge amount of money during the Great Depression. Paramount Pictures got out of debt because of it, and Grant became a star. Even Mae West said she found him, though that was a bit of an exaggeration. After she done him wrong did well, Mae West quickly made another movie with her called I'm No Angel, which came out in 1933. Since Grant is becoming more well-known, his pay went up from $450 to $750 per week this time. That's how his legendary career began. These two pictures made him one of Hollywood's most exciting new actors. In 1936, Grant did something very risky that shocked Hollywood. He quit his job at Paramount Pictures and the protection of a steady paycheck to become a freelance actor. He was making $3,500 a week at the time, which was a lot of money during the Great Depression. Grant didn't like the parts he was getting, though, and he wanted more control over his career. His contract ended on December 31st, 1936, and he refused to sign a new one. Then he asked to be able to pick his own scripts and work with other companies. At the time, this choice had never been made before. Everything was controlled by the studio structure, and no big star had ever been able to make it as a solo artist. His job was in danger, as many people told him. The production boss at Paramount even told him, "You'll be done," as a threat. "We'll take care of it." It was a risk, but Grant had faith in himself. Sure enough, his bet paid off right away. His role in Topper for Hal Roach Studios in 1937 showed that he could be successful on his own terms. Not only did this risky move change Grant's career, it also made it more common for actors in Hollywood to work alone. In the late 1930s, he was a huge star because he was so good at screwball comedies. His life was changed by two films. They wrote The Awful Truth in 1937 and Bringing Up Baby in 1938. Grant wasn't sure of himself in The Awful Truth. Leo McCarey, the director, made up scenes on the spot, which made Grant nervous. He almost quit the movie because he thought it would not work. He was worried at first, but his quick wit and nervous energy made him perfect for the part. The movie was a big hit, and he was nominated for his first Oscar. Also, it set the tone for the funny and likable figures he would become famous for. Grant was paid $50,000 for the movie, but after it did well, he started getting $150,000 per movie. Taking care of a baby matched Cary Grant with Katharine Hepburn the following year. He played a serious paleontologist whose life is turned upside down by Hepburn's wild heiress and baby, her pet leopard. The movie, which was directed by Howard Hawks, didn't do well at first, but it became a classic over time. Someone will always remember the time Grant, who was dressed as a woman, jumped up and said, "I just went gay all of a sudden." This made-up line became one of the most famous in movie history. The movie didn't do well at the box office, but it showed that Grant was a great comedian. In the same scene, he could play both a serious and a funny role, which not many artists could do. He became known as the king of screwball comedies with films like His Girl Friday, 1940, and Arsenic and Old Lace, 1944. A lot of people knew about Grant before he worked with Alfred Hitchcock. Grant, who was mostly known for comedies, made a bold choice with their first movie together, Suspicion, 1941. He played a charming but maybe dangerous husband in the movie. The company changed the ending to protect Grant's reputation because the first one showed him as a killer. A lot of people liked the movie, and Joan Fontaine got an Oscar for her part in it. In this other great Hitchcock movie, Grant played an agent who gives Ingrid Bergman a risky job. It was famous that Grant and Bergman kissed for more than 2 minutes in the movie. At the time, the rules said that kisses could only last 3 seconds. So, they kept pulling apart and then kissing again. It led to one of the loveliest scenes in movie history. In the 1955 movie To Catch a Thief, in the glamorous French Riviera, Grant played a thief who had changed his ways. The way they interacted lit up the screen, and the movie won an Oscar for Best Photography. One of Grant's most famous roles was as Roger Thornhill, a guy who was mistaken for a spy, in North by Northwest, 1959. Scenes from the movie will stay with you forever, like the crop duster chase and the big moment at Mount Rushmore. Even though he was 55, Grant still did a lot of his own acts, which shows how popular he is even now. Grant was special to Hitchcock. He once said that players were like cattle, but Grant was different. Cary Grant was one of the most popular and famous actors in Hollywood by the 1940s and 1950s. He was in 27 hit films between 1937 and 1959. He was the best-paid actor in 1943, making $300,000 per movie, which is a lot of money today. His style, wit, and good looks made him stand out. People love how classy he looked in his tailored clothes and how his accent was a mix of British and American tones. Even his enemies liked him. A well-known movie reviewer said that Cary Grant wasn't watched for his roles. They were interested in what he would do next. Many people think it's a big mistake that Grant never won a competition Oscar, despite all of his success. He was up for 2 awards, but didn't win either. He was given an honorary Oscar in 1970 for his great contributions to movies. Walk, Don't Run, 1966, was his last movie. It was an entertaining movie where he chose to calmly stop acting. He thought it was best to leave while he was still in good shape. At the same time, Cary Grant's love life went up and down. He was married to Virginia Cherrill for the first time. The first day was February 9th, 1934, and the last day was March 26th, 1935, just 13 months later. Their marriage was a mess. They fought a lot, and Virginia said that Cary tried to choke her during one fight. Virginia got $100,000, which was a lot of money back then, out of the split. It was all over the news. She was one of the richest women in the world, and they were married for a second time. She got the Woolworth wealth as an inheritance. On July 8th, 1942, they got married. They were called Cash and Cary because of their friendship. People thought Cary might want her money, but he wouldn't sign anything until they were married. He wouldn't take any of her money because he wanted to keep his own money. They were married for a short time. They broke up after only 3 months, but they tried to get back together before getting a divorce on August 30th, 1945. Cary didn't like how Barbara lived such a fancy life. Because he was poor as a child, he couldn't understand why she spent so much money. After they split up, Cary stayed close to Barbara and helped her through hard times. There was a lot of respect for him because he wouldn't take her money. The third time Cary got married was to actress Betsy Drake. They got married on Christmas Day, 1949, and were together for 13 years. He was married for a long time. They quickly fell in love after meeting on the Queen Mary. Betsy took Cary to LSD treatment while they were married, which was very unusual at the time. Cary took LSD more than 100 times while being watched by a doctor. He thought it helped him deal with his rough life and made him feel better. Things were hard for Betsy too, like making it through the sinking of the Andrea Doria in 1956. In spite of everything, they split up in 1962. Betsy later became a therapist because of the LSD trials. She said that making Cary happy made her lose herself. She got married to Diane Cannon for the 4th time. Cary was 61 years old when they got married on July 22, 1965. She was only 28 years old. There was a big age gap, but at first everyone seemed happy. In 1966, they had a girl named Jennifer. Cary was very happy to be a dad for the first time, but the marriage quickly went bad. Diane later said that Cary was bossy and harsh on her about how she looked, what she wore, and her job. She also said he pushed her to try LSD, which made her go through scary things. When they got divorced in 1968, it was a mess. They were accused of abuse, and they fought hard over who would have care of their daughter. They were mean when they broke up, but they were able to be nice to each other in the end for Jennifer's sake. Cary found happiness in his last marriage. The wedding took place on April 11, 1981, and he was 77 years old. Barb was a lot younger. She was 47 years younger than him, but they were still together. There was a long time between them before they got married. They met years ago at a hotel where Barbara worked. This marriage was steady and calm. In his later years, Cary enjoyed a less busy life. He traveled with Barbara and stayed out of the Hollywood glare. He also told Barbara and his daughter Jennifer that they should be close. Cary and Barbara were married until he died in 1986. A lot of people thought this was the best time in his life. Besides that, he was the subject of rumors his whole life, and even after he died, about his sexuality and his friendship with fellow actor Randolph Scott. Because they were so close and lived together, a mystery was formed that people are still interested in today. While they were making the movie Hot Saturday, they became good friends right away and chose to live together. For many years, from 1932 to 1944, they lived together in a beach house in Santa Monica that they called Bachelor Hall. At this point in time, both men married and divorced several women, but the way they lived together was still talked about in Hollywood. Photos taken by Jerome Zerby for publicity in 1933 showed Grant and Scott at home together, cooking, relaxing, and even wearing pajamas that matched. These pictures were meant to get more female fans by showing how they lived as a bachelor, but over time, people started to think they might be proof of a deeper relationship. Some people thought it was true when Virginia Cherrill, Grant's first wife, moved in with them after they got married in 1934. This strange arrangement didn't last very long. After a few months, Cheryl asked for a divorce, saying that Grant was mentally abusive and not interested in dating her. Some people even said Scott tried to kill himself because he didn't like Grant's marriage, but this has never been proven. Grant and Scott have always denied having a relationship. In particular, Grant fought back hard against these rumors. In 1980, he even sued Chevy Chase for $10 million because Chase made a joke that Grant was gay. The case was settled out of court. Still, some close friends and family had different ideas. Richard Blackwell, who spent some time with Grant and Scott, said they were deeply and wildly in love. Betty White, who worked with both stars, was sure that they were dating. They stayed friends for life, even after they stopped living together in 1944. In the 1970s, some people said they saw them holding hands in a restaurant, which could mean they had been together for a long time. Jennifer Grant, Grant's daughter, has rejected the rumors that her father is gay. She said she would have stuck by him no matter what if he had been gay. What else did she say? She said Grant had a lot of gay friends and didn't think that was a problem. That wasn't quite what his ex-wife, Diane Cannon, thought. She said she never thought Grant was interested in guys, but she remembered a time when he was friendly with the captain of a ship. Another story came from Bill Royce, who watched over Grant's house. Royce said Grant once told him that his sexuality changed over time, going from being mostly gay to queer to straight. According to reports, Grant compared sexuality to acting, saying that it was like switching between parts instead of always playing the same one. In 1958, Hollywood star Cary Grant went on a trip he didn't plan to learn more about himself. At the time, he was 54 years old and chose to try LSD-assisted therapy, which was a very strange idea. He couldn't have imagined how this choice would change his life, and it even led to a bigger change in culture. Grant's past was not good. His mother left him when he was only 11 years old. He didn't learn that his dad had put her in an institution until a long time after the fact. This secret, along with the stress of always looking perfect as a Hollywood star, caused him to look for help in a strange way. Betsy Drake, his third wife, is an actress, and she exposed him to LSD therapy. Drake had already tried it with Dr. Mortimer Hartman at a Beverly Hills practice and found it to work well. Grant made up his mind to try it. He began taking a modest amount of LSD, 25 once a week, starting in 1958. LSD, 25, is a strong drug that has deep effects on the mind. He worked closely with the doctor to talk about his thoughts and feelings during each 5-hour session. Between 1958 and 1961, Grant went to these meetings about 100 times over the course of 4 years. He was also making some of his most well-known films at the same time, like Charade and North by Northwest. In the end, Grant said that therapy helped him deal with the painful parts of his past and learn more about himself. He said he wanted to be free of the things that worried him, like the bad things that happened to him as a child, his problems with his parents, and even his problems with his ex-wives. He didn't want to go to therapy for years on end, and thought that LSD helped him move forward more quickly. The fact that Grant told his story in public made it even stranger. For the first time in his life, he told Look magazine in 1959, "At last, I am close to happiness." In 1960, he even got in touch with Good Housekeeping magazine to tell them more. He said, "I'm going to tell everyone about this. My life has changed because of it. Everyone needs to take it." Back then, people rarely talked about mental health, and it was almost unheard of for someone as well-known as Grant to talk about a new drug. The lessons were really intense. Grant talked about having strange dreams. In one, he saw himself as a huge penis taking off from Earth like a spaceship. He thought the therapy helped him, even though some of the things that happened were very strange. It helped him deal with his mental pain, cut down on his drinking, and make peace with things from his childhood and personal life that he hadn't dealt with yet. It was 1966, the same year Jennifer was born, and Hollywood was shocked when Cary Grant said he was quitting acting. After being in films like North by Northwest and Charade, he was at the top of his game. But Grant chose to leave everything to take care of his daughter. Universal Studios even made him a big offer of $1 million for one movie, but he turned it down. He didn't act again after Walk, Don't Run. His last movie came out in 1966, not even in small parts or TV shows. He instead put all of his attention on being a dad. He quit living alone in Hollywood and moved to Beverly Hills to a house that was better for families. Grant skipped the fancy parties in favor of reading bedtime stories alone at night. It was common for him to push Jennifer in her pram or play with her at the park. Grant didn't hire maids like a lot of other famous parents did. His own hard youth, where he grew up poor with an alcoholic father and a mother in an institution, made him want better for Jennifer. He wanted her to have a happy, safe life like the one he never had. Giving up fame to be a dad showed how much he wanted to give his daughter a good life. Grant took being a dad very seriously and went to great lengths to keep Jennifer's childhood memories alive. He started writing down everything about her life as soon as she was born. He bought high-quality gear to record audio and video of her daily life. Jennifer's first steps were caught on video, as were simple family talks. He even kept track of what she ate and slept. She said her first words, which were good stuff, a saying he loved. He wrote down important events like these. Everything was saved by Grant, even Jennifer's baby teeth and drawings from school. To keep these things safe, he had a special room built in their house that stays cool. He did this because he lost things from his childhood in Bristol, England, during the bombs of World War II. For Jennifer, Grant didn't want her to miss out on those links to her childhood. It took Jennifer almost 20 years to go through everything in his collection after he died because it was so big. This collection was the basis for the book she wrote about him. Jennifer's book, Good Stuff, A Reminiscence of My Father, Cary Grant, came out in 2011. People who read it got a rare look into the personal life of one of Hollywood's biggest stars. Jennifer wrote it over the course of 5 years using tapes, movies, and other things her father had saved. The book showed Grant in a different light. It showed him as a normal, caring dad. It was fun for him to shop at Gap and wear Levi's 501 jeans. Not all like the finished picture people saw on the screen. Jen told personal stories, like how Grant would rent a house in the neighborhood where she trick-or-treated just to see her dressed up, and how he always waved at her school bus. There were also rumors in the book about Grant's personal life, like whether or not he was gay, which Jennifer strongly rejected. She talked about how, even though they had a good life, her father taught her important things like how to handle money and work hard. When Cary Grant became a member of the Faberge Company in 1968, his life took a sudden turn for the worse. He agreed to a modest pay of $15,000 a year, which was a lot less than what he made as an actor. He mostly took the job because it gave him access to a private jet, which let him see his daughter a lot. This showed that he cared about his family, even though his job was slowing down. Grant began a new era in his later years with his one-man show, A Conversation with Cary Grant. From 1983 to 1986, he went to 36 places to tell stories and answer questions from fans. People got a rare, up-close look into his life through these shows. He had a deadly stroke while getting ready for one of these shows in Davenport, Iowa, on November 29, 1986. A few hours before he died, he went to a dinner even though he wasn't feeling well. When Hollywood and Grant's friends around the world heard that he had died on November 29, 1986, they were shocked. His last moments were just as emotional as the ones he played in films. Grant felt sick while practicing for a show at the Adler Theater in Davenport, but he kept on going ahead with the plans. In the evening, his situation got worse in his Black Hawk hotel room. Even though it was 210 over 130, which is very high, he wouldn't go to the hospital. Soon after, he fell into a coma and was taken to St. Luke's Hospital, where they declared him dead. At 11:22 p.m., a huge stroke was the cause. People were interested in Grant's fortune, which was worth between $60 million and $80 million at the time. Lisa Harris, his wife, and Jennifer Grant, his daughter, got most of his money. His will, which he signed in 1974 and changed in 1984, left important gifts to important people. Joseph Marin, his manager, got $100,000 from him. The Motion Picture Relief Fund got $50,000, Variety Arts International got $25,000, and the John Tracy Clinic for Hearing Impaired Children got $20,000. Also, between $10,000 and $25,000 was given to 16 people and groups. Grant's friend Stanley E. Fox was told to give his cars, jewelry, clothes, and other personal things to his friends and daughter. Because Grant was a private person, he asked that his wake not be open to the public. His body was burned, and his ashes were spread out in the Pacific Ocean, close to the coast of California that he loved so much. That he had won their respect, and President Ronald Reagan, who was also an actor, said he was one of Hollywood's biggest stars and praised his style and charm. Peter Bogdanovich, the director, called him the most important character in the history of films. Friendship with Frank Sinatra said he was a gentleman, kept to himself, and was one of the best performers of our time. Who worked with him in films like The Philadelphia Story, said he was great to be around and had all the qualities women look for in a guy. Hitchcock, who worked with Grant on 4 films, said that Grant was the only actor he had ever liked. He was liked by even younger stars like Meryl Streep. She said that his grace and beauty were so high that no one could reach them. Grant's influence lies on. Along with Humphrey Bogart, he was named the second best male star of Hollywood's golden age by the American Film Institute in 1999. He is often cited as an influence by modern actors like George Clooney and Hugh Jackman, who love his easy charm and style. He has an impact on more than just acting, especially in design. The way Cary Grant looks, its perfectly tailored suits and classic grace make it an icon. Oliver Peoples, a high-end brand, made sunglasses in 2020 that looked a lot like the ones Cary Grant wore in North by Northwest. Cary Grant's legacy lives on, affecting not only films but also society and style all over the world, decades after he died.